Good morning, Singapore. Wow, this is amazing, this conference. 250,000, 300 exhibitors, over 100 of them startup companies. What a remarkable event this is in such a short period of time. So my greatest compliments to all of the organizers of this event, this FinTech festival, and my compliments to the Monetary Authority of Singapore that continues to be at the forefront of financial market innovation and development. This is really a remarkable achievement. I'm grateful to have the opportunity this morning to kick off the festival's conference track on RegTech. As everyone here knows, technology-driven innovation is rapidly changing our world, transforming our markets, and in many respects, bringing all of us around the globe closer together. This morning, I want to talk about how the United States Commodity Futures Trading Commission plans to engage market-enhancing innovation to become a more digital, effective, and efficient regulator. In my role as CFTC chairman, I speak often about the ongoing transformation of the world's trading markets. From analog to digital, from human to algorithmic trading, and from standalone centers to seamless trading webs across the globe. So much of our world today, from music to entertainment, from information to manufacturing, from transportation and commerce, even agriculture, is undergoing a digital transformation. And it should be no surprise, especially to the people in this audience, that global capital, commodity, and futures markets are going through the same digital transformation. The electronification of markets over the past 30 to 40 years and the advent of digital technologies has altered trading, markets, and the entire financial landscape with far-ranging implications for capital formation and risk transfer. These new digital technologies include algorithmic trading that is rapidly replacing human trade execution in institutional front offices. Artificial intelligence and machine learning that is driving highly dynamic trade execution. Smart contracts that value themselves and calculate payments in real time. Behavioral biometrics that can detect and combat online fraud. Distributed ledger technologies that will disrupt some of the foundational elements of contemporary financial markets, and RegTech technologies that can enhance and improve regulatory oversight and industry compliance activities. These and other technologies and innovations present many novel regulatory opportunities, risks, and challenges. Unfortunately, the CFTC and other market regulators have not fully kept pace with this transformation, at least not so far. Such failure to keep pace means that we run the risk of ineffectiveness in overseeing the safety and soundness of contemporary financial markets. That is why, in May of this year, we launched Lab CFTC. Lab CFTC is the means by which we will keep pace with FinTech and RegTech innovations. Lab CFTC is our focal point to facilitate market-enhancing FinTech innovation and fair competition. And Lab CFTC supports our vital interest in maintaining deep and durable, competitive and vibrant capital and risk transfer markets in the new algorithmic digital 21st century. Now, we've housed Lab CFTC within our Office of General Counsel. It allows Lab CFTC to leverage the expertise of our legal team to manage the interface between technological innovation, regulatory modernization, and existing rules and regulations. Indeed, Lab CFTC is designed to make the CFTC more accessible to FinTech innovators. It serves as a platform to inform our understanding of emerging technologies and how they interface with our current rules. And that is why we have also situated Lab CFTC's laboratory in New York City's Lower Manhattan, We don't expect FinTech innovators to come see us down in Washington. We intend to go to them. Additionally, Lab CFTC is an information source for the agency itself in developing policy around technology-driven market innovation and evolution. Lab CFTC will enable us to identify regulatory opportunities, challenges, and risks as FinTech innovations develop and mature. Now, Lab CFTC will accomplish its mission in 3 ways. First, through engagement with innovators, whether they are startup disruptors or established institutions. Second, through consideration of new technologies, including RegTech, that could help us carry out our regulatory mission more effectively and efficiently. And third, through collaboration with external organizations, including domestic and international regulators, focused on sharing FinTech innovation and best practices. So how's it going? Well, since its launch a few months ago, Lab CFTC has held over 100 meetings with market participants and FinTech innovators, ranging from established financial service firms to startup companies. Our Lab CFTC lab rats have held office hours in the New York City laboratory, as well as in Chicago and Washington, D.C. And they will be conducting rolling sessions early next year in Silicon Valley, in Austin, Texas, Seattle, and Route 28, the Route 28 corridor outside of Boston. And who knows, maybe they may be even here in Singapore next year. Lab CFTC also published its first FinTech primer last month, and the topic was one on everybody's lips, and that is virtual currencies. I recommend it to your reading. The purpose of the primer is to provide a brief overview of virtual currencies, to explain the CFTC's role in overseeing them, and to educate the public on potential risks. If you haven't seen that virtual currency primer, take a look. It's on our website. Lab CFTC will use this communication tool to educate the public, add clarity, and provide a high-level roadmap regarding our current thinking. Now let me focus on the topic of today's track discussion, RegTech. While definitions vary, some have suggested that RegTech is essentially the use of technology-driven innovation to increase the effectiveness and the efficiency of business compliance with an increasing number of rules and regulations. Yet I might expand that definition of RegTech further to also include the ability of regulators to become more effective and efficient in serving our missions. The underpinnings of RegTech, or the elements that make it possible today, largely center on 4 key factors. First, one cannot underestimate the importance of exponentially increasing computing power over prior decades. Second, these increasingly powerful computers can access and analyze towers of data generated through digital networks and systems, as well as from smart physical objects that have been equipped with data-receiving sensors as part of the Internet of Things. Third, data analytics software has the ability to make sense of this plethora of data. It can drive concrete suggestions, conclusions, or action items. And fourth and finally, advances in machine learning and the future state of artificial intelligence can drive even more sophisticated analyses that go beyond the mere automation of functions. These factors fuel the growth of RegTech. RegTech can make regulatory compliance and oversight cheaper, easier, and more accurate, especially on basic manual processes that can be automated, trails of activity that can be logged, audit functions that can be executed faster and with more complete information, and suspicious behavior or activity that can be more readily flagged, and critical human resources that can be dedicated to ever more productive tasks. All of these elements speak to the promise of RegTech. 2 other dynamics worth acknowledging involve the distributed ledger technologies and smart contracts. As to the former, DLT, holds promise in increasing operational efficiencies, and it may also help to facilitate real-time standardized and lower-cost regulatory reporting, something that could benefit both industry and regulators. And related application of smart contracts or self-executing agreements could result in the potential decrease of execution risk, more efficient use of trade-related margin and collateral, and the incorporation of automated regulatory compliance provisions in the contract code. And thinking about RegTech, I think it's critical that we include cybersecurity and data security as part of the broader discussion. Indeed, the increasingly important role played by data and the movement of data or computing platforms means that the stakes around ensuring data integrity are higher than they ever have been. Undoubtedly, this will be one of the primary risks we will be addressing in the 21st century digital world. In coming to a close, I want to mention some work we will be doing through Lab CFTC to stimulate innovative RegTech, and I think you'll be interested in it. We plan to put out soon a call for public feedback on a series of innovation prize competitions that will begin in 2018 under the U.S. Science Prize Competition Act. These competitions will give us the ability to spur innovation, to solve public policy challenges, and enhance our markets. Such competitions may involve, for example, novel ways to use or share data, making our rules machine-readable, such as developing what we call a robo-rulebook, and building a more dynamic, digital, and smart public and notice and comment platform. So now let me conclude my formal remarks before I get to sit down with Tim Adams and address a few of his questions. RegTech offers significant opportunities for those involved in our financial markets, both participants and regulators. While I suspect we're in the early stage of this evolution, I believe that it's imperative for all involved stakeholders to do their part in understanding these emerging technologies and to think creatively about incorporating them in our way of doing business. Being here at the Singapore FinTech Festival only makes me more optimistic than ever that there's a wealth of new market-enhancing innovations and innovators waiting to come forward. It's clear that Singapore is ready, and through Lab CFTC, the United States is ready as well. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to speak to you today.
Thank you so much, Chris. Please do stay on stage, and it's time for you to take a seat because you'll be joined for a fireside chat with the President and Chief Executive Officer of IIF, Mr. Tim Adams. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Adams together
Thank you very much.
with Mr. Giancarlo.
I like the bar stools we have. We just need the bar and the cocktails to go with it. Let me also offer my thanks to be back here in Singapore. What a wonderful place. And I always say this about Ravi and the MAS. They are wicked smart. They are well-informed. They're always on the cutting edge. And if I have a question about most things in life, I always go to the MAS and ask them first. In fact, we opened an office here a few years ago. If you don't have a presence in Singapore, you're missing out. You should open an office here, have a presence here. They are the smartest people around. And you know that, and you and I have been talking about it. And so congratulations to Ravi. When we first started talking about this conference 3 or 4 years ago, there was a question of whether it be 1,000 or 2,000 people that would show up. You've got 25,000 people. It just shows that when it comes to vision and execution, Singapore generally, and the MAS specifically, is maniacal in their approach to actually executing. So with that, my commercial for the MAS, let's start with you. You mentioned your lab, CFTC. Not a sandbox.
That's right.
But it's a lab. So why the different nomenclature, and what led you to the decision? And was it a vision? Did you wake up one morning and say, I see this, I want to go do it? Or was it based on conversations? What's the origin?
Yeah, so I must give a shout out to MAS as well and their leadership in the area of innovation sandboxes, but also to the Project Innovate in the UK and other jurisdictions as well. We looked at those examples. I came in as chairman in January. We looked at those examples and said, what's our approach to this? And what we realized is we had something that none of the other jurisdictions had, and that is our no-action relief, which allows us to do what sandboxes do, and that is to recognize that our rules may not provide for something, but we want to give a degree of relief. So we didn't need to create a sandbox. We already had sandbox relief. But what we didn't have was the innovation side of it. We didn't have the technology innovation focus, the ability to have technologists meet with technologists when they come into the regulator and say, okay, tell me what you're doing, let me see how it works, let me understand it technological, and then let's apply it against CFTC rules and see where the rules provide resistance. And then we can use our no-action relief to provide some relief while those innovators move forward. So we had the sandbox component. What we didn't have is the technology. That's why we call it Lab CFTC.
Well, you operate on a global scale. Capital is global. Are you interacting with your counterparts around the world? Do they have similar kinds of labs or sandboxes? And are you sharing best practices with those counterparts?
Absolutely. One of our objectives in Lab CFTC is to meet with the other sandbox innovators around the world. And we're looking at some partnerships as well as to where we might be able to develop some protocols so that when an innovator qualifies for, say, a sandbox in one jurisdiction, they would have immediate access to another jurisdiction as well. So that's something that we've begun some conversations on. We should have some more to say about that in early 2018.
Fabulous. And when you meet with, you mentioned you have a road show, you go to Boston and Austin and, all the right places. As you know, Washington can be a formidable place. You've got dark buildings and with, it's a tough place for entrepreneurs to come. In fact, as you and I both know, you talk to young startups, they stay away from Washington because they're frightened of it. How do you make it approachable, and what advice do you have to startups in the audience?
Well, I mentioned Britain, I mentioned Singapore. One of the advantages these two financial capitals have is that the innovators and the regulators are here in the same city. The innovation is taking place where the regulation policy is being developed. It's a bit of a one-stop shop. In the case of MAS, it's very much a one-stop shop. In the UK, you've got Treasury, you've got the central bank, and you've got the Market Conduct Authority, all in the same place. Well, in the United States, we don't have that. Our financial center is New York, our innovation center is New York, California, and yet our center of government is in Washington, D.C., and our agency is based in Washington. So we wanted to address that immediately. We don't want innovators having to, leave Brooklyn or leave California, come to Washington and talk to us. We want to be where they are. That's why we're in Lower Manhattan. That's why we take the show on the road and go to Chicago, go to California, and go elsewhere. And there's no reason why we should be limited to U.S. jurisdictions visits as well. So we could do lab hours. We have a mobile lab unit. We could do lab hours anywhere. But secondly, the way our government is structured is you have different government agencies looking after different pieces of that. That's something there's no easy answer for, but we're very aware when firms come to us, innovators come to us, if what they're showing us is something we don't regulate, but it might be under the SEC or under the Fed, we'll point them in the right direction. We'll pick up the phone and make a phone call and say, you ought to see so-and-so over there. So we think our decentralized approach can work. We think our willingness to go where innovation is taking place can work very well.
I know with my own board 3 or 4 years ago when we started our RegTech initiative, there was lots of concern among incumbent firms about the startups that you see here. Are they going to steal market share from us? They've moved away from that. They're more worried about other incumbents. So when you're talking to incumbent large institutions, what are they telling you? Do they see startups as a threat, or they see them as a potential acquisition?
So this is an age-old problem, right? In every evolution of technology, you have incumbents and you have innovators. I mean, go back to the internal combustion engine. Some of the first automobile manufacturers had been bicycle manufacturers.
Right.
Henry Ford was a bicycle manufacturer before he became an auto manufacturer. And certainly in Silicon Valley, in the early days, you had the Honeywells and the IBMs and others. So that's healthy. That tension between the incumbents and the innovators. Some of the best work right now is being done by incumbents defensively because they don't want to be completely disintermediated, and yet the innovators have a challenge as well. So as someone who at heart is a student of markets, markets are organic things. Evolution is very much like in the natural world, evolutionary. And the healthiest ecosystems are ones that have a lot of biodiversity. Just as it's true in the natural world, it's true in the marketplace as well.
Absolutely. And are there trends that you're seeing either from the startups or from the incumbents? Are there particular trends or topics that are emerging that maybe you hadn't thought about? What's on the cutting edge on your desk right now?
So what's very exciting for us, one of the core I often think of my job here at the CFTC as a bit both looking back at what brought us to where we are today and looking forward. The financial crisis influence of so much what's happened in the last 5 or 6 years.
Indeed.
And one of the byproducts has been to bring an enormous amount of operational and capital complexity to the global financial system. You talk to any financial service firm, and the burden of operational and capital complexity caused by the new rule set is there. And that's driving, I believe, a lot of the new RegTech, FinTech innovation that's coming about. Just as that capital complexity is difficult for the industry regulate, it's also very difficult for us as a regulator. And so we need ourselves to adopt a lot of these new technologies in order to fulfill our mission in this new world we're in.
You make an excellent point. The billions that the industry is spending on compliance, and I quit complaining about it a long time ago. But the problem is the lack of efficacy and efficiency. I know with respect to AML, KYC, or SARS, not necessarily in your area, but in the UK alone, banks file about 500,000 SARs a year. Only 0.5% of them are used for actual law enforcement. It's not about spending less, it's about spending better and more effectively. But you and I operate in a political culture. How can you encourage innovation with respect to compliance and avoid the criticism that you're being lenient on, those nasty financial institutions?
Yeah, so, that political atmosphere probably will always be there. I think maybe sometimes the clouds are darker, but it's always there. What we have to do as a regulator is be sensible about these things. We have to develop the type of reporting regime that firms can actually comply with, right?
Right.
Firms want to comply. There's no question about, for the most part, firms want to do the right thing, want to be in compliance. So we need to develop the type of just technological and practical ability to comply with that data. And then it's incumbent upon us to use that data well. And if we're asking for data that we're not using, perhaps we should rethink that and not ask for that. So I think it's incumbent upon us, outside of that political atmosphere, to be a smart, good, practical regulator, to work well. We've got a job to do. I mean, our markets rely on a role for regulators to police them for fraud and manipulation, right? That's always there as well. We've got a job to do. We've got to do it well. But we've got to do it in a way that's practical as well. We don't want firms out of compliance simply because it's impossible to comply with a set of rules.
Chris, you've been on the cutting edge of this, but you're part of the ecosystem of Washington of lots of different financial regulatory bodies. We see this across with the whole new administration.
Yep. It's
not about deregulation, it's about a more balanced approach. Wouldn't you say that really kind of characterizes this new administration?
Well, I want to tip my hat. I don't know how much time folks have had to take a look at the Treasury reports that have been put out under Treasury Secretary Mnuchin in the last few months. But some of the best thinking on markets, I think, to emerge from Washington in perhaps a decade or so. Really sensible, balanced, thoughtful, notwithstanding political rhetoric. There's no call for wholesale, repeal or undoing of the G20 Accords or reg reform. It's sensible, thoughtful. How do we get to a financial market that has a systemic durability, and at the same time is economic growth promoting and supporting? And that's what financial markets do. They have to both provide the engines for growth, but do it in a way that enhances systemic. The phrase is often used as stability.
Right.
I get uncomfortable with the word of stability when it comes to markets, because markets are always evolving. I refer to durability. Markets need to be durable. They're always going to have periods of growth, periods of slowdown, periods of exuberance, periods of slower thing. So markets need to be durable. They need to withstand the evolution of markets.
Speaking of durable and stable markets, let me bring up Bitcoin.
Yep.
We had Jamie Dimon speaking at our annual membership meetings about 5 weeks ago, and Jamie was on stage, and he was let me say, negative in his approach toward Bitcoin specifically, although with respect to distributed ledger, a little bit more positive, I would say. How do you approach Bitcoin? I know that you're doing a lot of work with respect to certain contracts. How do you think about it, and what message do you want to send to the audience today?
Yeah, so I approach Bitcoin pretty much like we do any other emerging technology. Is we need to interface as a regulator with technology in a technology-neutral fashion. our statute is quite broad. So our agency in 2015 and pretty consistently since has pronounced virtual currency as a commodity over which we have jurisdiction.
Right.
To the extent that Bitcoin or any other virtual currency is a means of storing and transferring value, then it fits within our jurisdiction in the United States. And so we then react against that technology. We have, on one hand, where an applicant has met our requirements, which are set out in our regs and in our statute, we have granted them a license for a Bitcoin futures exchange. That was a few months ago. Similarly, within a week or two of that, we took enforcement action against a Bitcoin Ponzi scheme. So we called, to use an Americanism, we call the balls and strikes as we see it. If it's legitimate, we act on it. If it's illegitimate, we'll also act on it in the way it is. Now, there's a lot of concerns about initial coin offerings. That's not in our jurisdiction. That's in the jurisdiction of the Securities Exchange Commission. I would say to perhaps retail participants in the market, and I say this not as much as the chairman of the CFTC, somebody who's just been in public life for going on 36 or 37 years, be careful of valuation. People need to do their due diligence, as you would in any new innovation, as you would do in any new marketplace. Do your homework and do your due diligence. But as far as our interaction as an agency, we take this as a new technological innovation. We follow our law, we follow our regulation, and we apply it as it applies.
And futures contracts? Bitcoin futures contracts?
Yes. So as I said, we gave a license. We acted on a license for a virtual currency, a Bitcoin futures contract. We have the Chicago Mercantile Exchange has put out a number of public statements saying that they're looking to launch a Bitcoin futures contract. Now, Chicago Mercantile Exchange is an existing licensed platform by us. And under our regulation, when they launch a new product, we don't approve it. So there's some talk in the press about us, the CFTC, approving this new contract. Under our law, they self-certify. That means they give us notice that they're going to launch this new product, and we have a period of review, and we can conduct our review. And provided that we don't delay the review, then they can go forward with the product. So to my friends in the press that have referred to when will the CME have approval from the CFTC for this product, we don't approve it, but we will complete our review in due course.
One of the items that you noted in your remarks, which are quite good, was the advent of AI, machine learning, and the importance. What about algorithmic risk? Something we wouldn't have talked about 5 years ago. The phrase probably didn't exist. How do you think about that as a risk, and how do you manage it?
Yeah, so our markets have fundamentally changed. When people sometimes think about markets overseen by the CFTC, they think about a famous old movie from the 1970s called Trading Places, with those famous trading pits,
orange
with
juice.
the orange juice.
Yeah.
And it signals, well, those are the markets that used to exist. Those markets are gone now. Those trading floors, those trading pits, for the most part, are closed. I got to visit the SGX, and those floors, they built a building for a floor, and the floors don't exist.
I didn't know what a pork belly was until that movie. I had to figure out it's bacon.
Yeah. So the markets, what's happened is these markets have become algorithmic. The increasing amount of our markets, we've estimated that something like 4/5 of our markets are automated to a large extent. And algorithms increasingly drive trading. The digital human, the analog human world is replaced by the algorithmic digital world in trading markets. And so what we've got to do is adjust our regulation to see fit. Now, the Commission 2 years ago put forward a proposal called Reg AT.
Right.
It was a registration scheme for automated traders. It didn't really, I believe, address the public policy implications of algorithmic trading. And that's one of the things we're going to be looking at and talking more about in the years to come, is what really are the policy implications. And it starts with thorough understanding of how these algorithms are changing marketplaces. And that's something we're going to be looking carefully at and we'll be speaking about.
And then how do you employ the same technology in your role as a regulator? And how do you hire? How do you find the human capital to stay? It's an arms race in some ways.
It is,
how do you stay up?
So we get massive amounts of data. And how, in the commercial world, how is massive amounts of data analyzed? Well, it's automated analysis. It's highly sophisticated big data, cloud computing data analysis. That's where we have to evolve to as an agency. I'm sorry to say, in too many ways, we do data analysis the old-fashioned way. We gather it together, we scrub it, we extrapolate for data we don't have, and then we have human analysts looking at it. Well, we really need to move into the 21st century in this regard and go to a more automated big data pattern recognition type of data analysis capability, and that's something that we're in a discussion with our overseers in Congress and our appropriators to get the resources to do it. And you're right, we're absolutely competing with some of the best minds and the best trained data analysts in the industry.
But are there vendors here, or do you have vendors coming into your office once a week and saying, we've got the latest and greatest technology, we can help you because we're helping the guy you're after?
We've seen some amazing programs and software, and Tim, anything you could do to get Congress to get us the appropriation, we'll go out and make some hires. So.
Excellent. All right, well, this has been a rousing conversation. I think one of the messages that you want to get across is that you're open for business. You want to be a facilitator. You shouldn't be frightened off by the alphabet soup of organizations in Washington or Washington itself, which is a bit of a dangerous place now from a political standpoint. You're open for business. You want to do outreach. You want to help this industry evolve. You want to be a partner. You want to use the technology, but you're open for business. You're going to be nimble, just like our friends from MAS.
There is technology is a force in its own way. You can't stand and put your hand up and say, give me time to get to it. You've got to move with it in its own pace. And the rate of pace is getting faster and faster. As a regulator, we have no choice but to get into the flow, to get in the game, be on top of this. If you say no, you fall behind, you're out of the game. We're in the game. Well, CFTC's in it.
I want to applaud you because most of Washington functions like an incumbent. You're really like a startup. You're on the cutting edge, and I want to applaud. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please, for our chairman of CFTC.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Giancarlo and Mr. Adams, for that excellent chat. We enjoyed listening to you.